and we were out fishing one day, and we had decided to go out a little further than we just wanted to check kind of into out of the inlet and into, the open water. Anyway, as we came through, there was an enormous wave coming at us. And literally, I saw this wave about 10 feet over the boat we were in. And I was a little nervous because I was navigating the boat. And as we hit this wave, I just looked at him. I said, "We're fine. Hold on." We hit the wave. And then I had to time it, take a second one, then turn the boat around, and then took a few minutes, got back. The point of the story is, as we were driving back, he looked at me and he's like, "Dad." I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "That was scary, huh?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You weren't scared." And I took my hand off the wheel of the boat, and my hand was shaking because I was really frightened. And I said to him, "It's okay to be afraid. What's not okay is to lose control and not take the action you need to take," right?
Yes.
Because that's what's important. And I said it to him because I wanted him to know I was afraid. I wanted to show him my vulnerability, but that I like that. But that can't rule. That can't rule what I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still took action, appropriate action, but it didn't mean you weren't fearful. I mean, there are times when I know I get up to speak and my heart is here and it's pounding out of my chest. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm sitting there talking myself off the ledge going, and it's not even a dangerous, you were in a potentially dangerous situation. And a lot of that was out of your control. And that's again, it goes back to the unknown. We don't know what that wave is going to do to the boat. We only know how we could possibly respond. And it goes back to what we were saying, that response.
Well, exactly. And no fear. It's not that there's no fear. You have fear. That's okay. But you got to literally say to yourself, "It's okay. I'm afraid right now, but I can't stop."
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's where instinct jumps in as well. I would say and that's why we go and we practice things like firemen and police people. They go and they practice shooting their gun. They practice being in these situations. And it's repeat, muscle repeat, kind of like working out too. It's the muscle memory and repeating. And sports people, same thing. They shoot the hoop, they shoot the hoop, they shoot the hoop. They just keep doing it, not because they're bored. it's for muscle memory to know how to do it and how to do it under different circumstances. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. It's a great example because I mean, you can, and they talk about Michael Jordan always shot so many free throws. Chris Mullin was somebody else, shot hundreds and hundreds of free throws after practice. And I sometimes used to think about, you'd watch those guys step up to the stripe after they got fouled and the crowd is screaming at the top of their lungs if they're playing in a hostile environment. And they just hit the shot, and it's like, because they had done it hundreds and probably for them thousands of times. Yeah. And that discipline just kicked in, and it was okay. It was an uncomfortable environment. It was difficult.
They stayed in the zone. They stayed in their track. They stayed where they were supposed to do. And, I was recently speaking to someone and they were so concerned about what somebody else was doing. This person's doing this, that, and they're finding success. And I'm like, ooh, keep your eyes on your own page. You got to stay in your own zone. You may not have all those tools yet, or you may be in a different place. The compare and contrast, bad. I don't recommend that because it takes you off of your track. You got to stay on your own track.
Which goes back to choices, right? Because if you made a certain choice, it puts you in a certain place. And that's where, as you were saying earlier, that's where you're supposed to be. Yeah. Somebody else may be in a different place and you can't replicate. You have to focus where you are and deal with what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an experience, and it's so funny because I was just like, I want to speak in front of like 20,000 people, blah blah blah, and that's a great aspiration, right? Who doesn't? Who likes to speak? Who doesn't want to do that, right? And I, because you've known me long enough, my mission is to reach over 1 million people and help them understand their greatness so that they go on and pursue and excel at their purpose. So, but with that said, I was just like, I just don't understand. The first couple of presentations I made, it was like 5 people, 3 people, 20 people, it was just nothing significant. And I was like, yeah, I could do this with my eyes closed. It's not a big deal. And then I had one of my coaches say this to me, which was just perfect and germane. And they said to me, Lorianne, did you ever crash and burn when you spoke? And I was like, yeah. And they said, would you have preferred to have done it in front of 20,000 people or 5 people. And I was like, oh no, I preferred the 5 people because those 5 people were impacted not well. And now, and they said, there's a reason why there's a buildup to that. So you don't start that overnight success. That doesn't happen. It's an overnight success in 20 years after practice, right? I want to continue this conversation, but we're going to jump to a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the great, wonderful Vince Perrotta. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne. If you would like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, or not-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we would love to hear from you. Email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. We really love hearing from you. I personally answer all of the emails, and I love the exchange. Today, we have been speaking with the great Vince Perrotta, our co-host. Love the conversations we have. Vince is a coach as well. He really helps a lot of people, and we were just speaking about awareness and choices and responses. So, Vince, where we left off was right responses, wrong responses, and how there really aren't any wrong responses. It's just different ramifications, right?
It is. And, it's kind of, we just have to accept that at that moment and focus less on, I wish I could, or I should have picked this. Cause I think that's also the other thing is you're actually in that moment with the choice you made. And you're like, God, I wish I had I wish I'd done the other thing. Well, but you can't. Now you're not focused on what you actually picked.
Yeah. So I think a good practice is once you make your decision, commit to it and just move forward. The woulda, coulda, shouldas really don't serve us. And also we have to remember when we make a decision at this moment, we have this much information and we can only make our best decisions based on what we have. So I always enjoyed when I watch news, which I don't do and I don't recommend anybody doing, but in the past, when I watch the news and they're like, well, they did this and they should have done that. Well, easy for you to say to do that Monday, what do they call it? Monday morning quarterback. Yeah. It's easy for you to do. Thank you for the sports reference. I don't think that. It's easy for people to do that because you have additional information that person may or may not have had at the time. So I like us to really think about, make the best choice you can at the time based on as much information that you can gather at the time. That's why I think I don't do spur of the moment purchases, large purchases, because I want to get as much research as possible because I have anxiety. My heart's pounding out of is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? Maybe I should wait. I have all those questions we all have, but through research and being informed, I make a better informed decision. Do you do the same thing?
I do, but I'm not really good at it. So I actually rely on others to help me be good at it. Yeah, it's one of my, I love what you just said about how you do all this extensive research and you dive deep into it. I will research it, but I always think I don't ask the best questions. So what I do is and I'll tell you very candidly, my son is really analytical. So I will purposely post something to him just to hear the questions that he's got. And I always think if you can answer someone's questions, right, and you can satisfactorily address that, whether or not they agree with you, but if you can satisfactorily address those questions, then you have enough information.
Yes.
So, but I think that's such a great point. It's like, you've got to research, you got to study, you got to prepare, and you've got to question yourself. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, questioning myself is the best way for me to learn too. It's just, I'm not questioning my choices. I'm questioning so I can be curious. So I like to call it being curious. And the phrase I use, which is help me understand, which derives the terror in many people. I don't know why, but it's really for me to help really understand another person's perspective. And like you, although I do a lot of research myself, I will go to experts like you and other people and say, hey, what do you think? Or what thoughts do you have? And that's a really good way to bounce it off of trusted people, experts in their field, just to get a different perspective. You may end up in the same place, which my mom comes to mind. That's why I'm laughing, because my mom was like, well, you didn't do what I suggested. So why do you even bother asking me for my opinion? And I was like, well, there was the operative word. I was looking for your opinion, not for your decision.
See, and you make a great point that lends to something else besides that. So some people will ask, what do you think? And they're not really asking what you think, right? They're asking, why don't you think about how you can validate what my thinking is?
Yes.
And so that's why when you coach someone, I will, and I hate that I don't hate it. I love that I use my kids all the time. But my daughter taught me this. It's like, what is it that you really want from me? Like, so she says to me all the time, Dad, sometimes I want you to help me problem solve. And sometimes I just want you to listen, right? Yeah. I don't need you to problem solve. Let me just lay out what I'm thinking. I want somebody to hear me out because I'm processed. And I think that's really good. So when you're with a coach, right, what do you want from them? Right? Are you asking them to, like, hey, critique this, tell me what it is? Or are you saying, no, just hear me out on this. I just need a sounding board.
Yeah. A good coach is not going to give you that answer and shouldn't give you the answer because it's not ours to answer. That's not our question. Ours is to help lead you to your own answer through a series of curious questions. So, I think to your point, and I always watch you throw things back when we work together, you throw things back at me, I throw things back at you, not because we're being distant and not answering the question, is because it's not ours to answer. It's similar to when we tell other people's stories. It's not my story to tell. If you want to know what's going on in Vince's life, ask Vince. It's not my story. He shared it with me, but it's not my story. So those are the kind of things that kind of run through my mind. And again, it goes back to courage is in the heart, fear is in the mind. And I really love that. The other thing that came to mind when we were talking is, our uniqueness. Each of us are unique and different is really, really good. And even in the term, in the word, it's unique, as in unique, right? So it's your specific wisdom. Only you have the wisdom that you have because based on life experience. Only you, that's the uniqueness that you carry. So, and we're all like that. So I love difference. And how do you feel on that topic too? Because that goes back to awareness, which goes to choices, which goes to action, right?
So I love that. I led a team for many years. And one of the best things about having this team was no two people were the same. They had different personalities, different approaches, different ways of doing things. And I had never noticed that until I had someone who came into my team as an observer. They wanted to see what we were doing because the team was doing really well. And at the end of the thing, the person approached me and said, I really commend you. You have 10 different people and they are all incredible, but incredible in uniquely different ways. And it taught me because I always learned something every time I worked with one of them. But it was something different. Like if you and I worked together, what I learned with you was different than whatever I learned with Joe, right? Yeah. And it was great. So I love that. I foster that. I seek out people who think differently, not just different thoughts, but think differently than I do.
Yes.
That helps me think and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. We grow and it helps us with understanding. I look at it as 360, looking at a topic 360. That's full circle, right? I'm looking at it from this vantage. But we have all these other angles that we're not looking at it from. And I'll bring back the sports analogy, me and Patrick Mahomes, dude, he's awesome. For a young man, he has so much play wisdom and he has so much awareness of what's going on around him, but he still has all these coaches on the sideline giving him different access and versions and what's the word I'm looking for? Awareness of what's going around him. And he has eyes in the sky. His coach is up there in the box, looking down, looking at it from a different vantage point, giving him insight on things that are going on. At the end of the day, he makes the choice on the field because he's where the action is. But they're, giving the perceptions from those different angles. My favorite part, and I love this, is the after the play and then watching the replays. Why do sports people do that?
Well, that's how we
knowing the answer.
Well, that's how we learn. That's how we see that. If it was successful, why was it? People think, oh, it was successful, great. No, that's the first step. Why was it successful? Yeah. How can we repeat it? Right? Yeah. what were the risks that we kind of overcame. And if it wasn't successful, it's even more valuable because it's like, what did we miss? You look for analogs because you're going to be in that same situation again. I don't want to have the same outcome. I want to have a better outcome.
Yeah, E plus R equals O. Our responses change. Our outcome will be different to the